It had to happen at some point. Well, I appreciate everybody joining today. I'm Jared Thomas, Senior Account Executive at iPullRank. I'm joined by the lovely Jordan Leschinsky, who is our Manager of Content Strategy. Jay, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
So excited. I have been watching all of these and been dying to be a part of it. So I'm very excited to be here.
Appreciate it. I'm happy to have you here. And thank you for everybody attending at home, everybody who's going to be watching on the replay. We really appreciate your continued support. So today we have a really good topic today. We wanted to really talk about, how to approach content strategy, agency edition wise. And I wanted to start with some statistics, right? So I did some research that was conducted by Grafton, right? And then it said in terms of investment for content strategy, B2B brands, 70% of the B2B brands are going to be investing more money into their content strategy this year. So what we wanted to do is just kind of talk about, before you even make that investment, what are some of the things you should be looking to or looking for when you're planning your content strategy, right? What is good content? What you should be looking for? How do you boost your engagement? And ultimately, how do you drive leads, right? How do you increase your sales and conversion? So we have the lovely Jordan here, and I'd love to start off with the first question, right? It's a simple one, but we're going to start at the high level, right? But what is good content, right? And what is a content strategy? Let's just start off there.
Yeah, I mean, I think even go further back, what is content? And people use that word for anything. But I can tell you right now that content is not marketing assets. It is not the promise you make. It's not your USP. It's not where your brand stands. Content is a conversation you have with customers and consumers. And I think that's the one piece of it that a lot of people miss out on, a lot of people don't think about. And then content strategy is that intent behind it, your goals, your objectives, and it'll already determine what content you put out there, because content can be broad. It can be anything. It can be a video. It can be an article. It can be an ebook. It can be a display ad. But the strategy behind it is really what will determine what you get out of the content.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Because content is all around us, right? It could be anything that you think of. It could be any life experience. It could be a story. It could be an ad. It could be anything. But it doesn't necessarily make it good, right? And I believe I posted something a couple of weeks back, right? And for all the brands listening, I think the biggest thing or the challenge I see brands doing is that they create content for themselves and not necessarily the customer. And I think we've all seen that, right? You go to a website, you're looking to buy something, it's like it leads you down a rabbit hole of all these different things. And really what you wanted was a flashlight or something.
Totally, but the so what of it. Like, that's so great that you're amazing, you're fantastic, and your service is better than anyone else's, but why should I care?
Right, and even now the COVID message, right? So now I want the flashlight. Now I know what you're doing for COVID. I know. That is not effective content. Does it work? In some cases, it depends, right? And I think it goes back to you guys or brands understanding who their customer is, who their audience, who their audience typically are, and what do they expect from the brand. Exactly.
Because that kind of content you're describing can be right for you, but you first have to figure that out. Is it right for you? Is it right for your audience? Is it right for your goals?
Exactly. So as a content strategist, like how do you figure that out? Curious, like what are some of the things that you would look at, as a brand, you put out some new content, it's not really performing to, your internal KPIs. What are some of the things that you look at and pivot to?
Honestly, just start at the beginning. I think a lot of people do exactly what you said now. A competitor is doing videos. I should do videos. We have to do videos. How can we do videos? When? And I think it's just important, whether you've done them or you're just thinking about it, just to start from the beginning. Like, who are we talking to? Who do we want to be talking to? Who do we not want to be talking to? About what? It's really got to start with the audience first, because like you said, it's not about me, the brand, it's about my customers. Yeah. And then from there, you can move on to your goals and objectives. Like, what do I actually want to achieve with this content? Because the beauty of it is you can do anything. It's so creative. It's so much fun. But if you want to generate traffic, is a video on YouTube going to do that? Yeah. Is that what's going to meet your goal? So just make sure that those two things align, because you can kind of get caught up in that excitement of doing something new, creating something amazing. But if it's not going to meet your goals, you're going to waste that money.
Exactly, especially if it's your baby. So I know when it's your idea, it's your baby, you wanted to bring it to life, but sometimes you're going to have to pivot. And I think something that you said that was really important just now is like the understanding the audience, but understanding how they consume content, right? I think that's even something that's even just as important, right? If content is going to perform. It has to look and feel a certain way on LinkedIn as opposed to Instagram, as opposed to Twitter, and any other channel that you may be using. So understand your audience, and also understand your target, understand what they're looking to do, what they expect from you. Where are they, right? Meet them where they like to consume content.
Totally. And don't assume just because you like it, someone else will, and don't assume that they'll continue liking it tomorrow. That stuff changes all the time. So you start at the beginning, but all the way through the strategy, all the way through your promotion, all the way through everything, you have to assume you know nothing. You have to start from the beginning every time, because just because everyone's loving TikTok right now doesn't mean they will tomorrow. So, don't make those assumptions and just, carry on without stopping to analyze.
So true. And we actually have a good question, which is actually a good segue from Pradeep. He said, is promoting content becoming more important than content quality? That's a great question.
I think it is. I don't think it should be. It's both ways. You can promote as much as you want out of it. You can have all the budget in the world, but if it's bad, all you're going to get is a really high bounce rate. So, the marketing, the social media guy will say, look at my, cost per clicks and my impressions and click-through rate. I have driven this much traffic to your website. But if all those bounces are going and if you're not actually selling the product you want to sell, what's the point? So content has to be good first. But at the same time, Pradeep, you do need to promote it, because a lot of people create it and wait.
Absolutely.
And then nothing happens. You have to let people know.
For sure. I think similar. I think they need to be intertwined. I think they need to have this, same amount of focus, right? Because it kind of goes with what she said, right? If you promote content, but the content is bad, what does that mean, right? You're not going to get the outcome you want. And
that's part of content strategy. It's a marketing strategy and content strategy aren't separate things.
All right. Definitely are. Same ways that sales and marketing should be intertwined. It's the same conversation. Marketing shouldn't be in 3 rows down from sales, and I don't know what's going on, and vice versa. So just think of it from that aspect, right? Like how you have this quality content, definitely have to put in time and effort into distribution channels, which goes back to your audience and knowing where they're consuming the content. And then more so, what do you want your audience to get out of that piece of content, right? That's the main goal, right? So what do you want? Do you want to educate? Do you want to inform? Do you want to entertain? And what will that lead them to?
Exactly. Yeah. Why am I here? You know all this.
It's gonna make me blush. I don't want to do that. No, but another question we have for you, Lord, kind of goes back. Like, so what do you consider to be good content, right? So now that we're talking about it, like, what is something that catches your eye, and what do you expect out of good content?
I think for me personally, and it's different for everyone, but it is something that is not obviously trying to get something out of me. Because I think as soon as that's the case, it's marketing. People are ad blockers. We've installed everything we can to avoid it. But from the first 3 words of anything you've read, whether it's a post or it's an ad, when they're trying to lie to you. And I think that's the thing that people get wrong with content a lot of the time, is that the focus first is that sale, or the assumption that we need you to do something after reading this. We've given you this great content, now we expect something back. And I think those expectations should be taken away. And the thing is, you're probably going to need me to read more pieces of content to convert, if that's your approach. But I think the difference is, I've now read 5 or 6 pieces. I now trust you. I now believe you understand who I am. We speak the same language. Even if I was originally a consumer of product A or competitor A, you're competitor B. You relate to me so well. You think about the things I think of. You have the same opinions and beliefs. Maybe I'm a person B. Maybe I always thought I drove that kind of car, but maybe I'm more this kind of car driver. So that relationship you can build and that conversation you can have can do a lot to convert me long term, as opposed to just getting a quick sale right now.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to be sold. They want to be told, right? They want to be joined in the conversation. Nobody wants that. I think, people are smart enough. They're hip to this now. Even the casual consumer, right? We know when you want to sell it, right? We're like, oh, here it comes. Even if you, fill out a form or something, like, you're like, here comes sales. It's like, you know what I mean? And that's just what it is. It's even hard saying it as a salesperson, but authenticity sells, right? Be very upfront and honest with what you want from your customer, right? I want you to read, and I want you to get your education on this particular product that I'm offering, because I think it could bring value in this way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people go, what would I write as a marketer? What would I do as a copywriter, as a brand strategist, as opposed to like, what would I click on as a consumer? because you would write a really horrible hard sell piece of copy, and 2 seconds later read it from someone else and go, oh, this is nonsense. So it's just changing your mind frame from a seller to a buyer.
Yeah. Actually, I have a question for you. What as a content strategist, what is the most important skill you think for somebody in your role should have?
Oh, I think it's really important to consider everything, like speak to people, like build up your knowledge base, because content strategy, as we've been saying, is not just I know how to write articles or I'm really good at emails or social media. It's about everything. Content strategy can and should encompass every single platform and channel and audience member and effort. It's really 360 degrees. So it's best to understand or do what you can to speak to designers, speak to brands, speak to customers, speak to analysts, understand what impacts everything so that your strategy doesn't leave anything out. You're really, really focused on articles, but your above the line agency or team is saying something completely different and undermining what you're trying to do. So it really does need to involve everyone. And the best thing as a content strategist is to know what everyone's doing so that you can align your strategy to goals.
So true. I think something that's overlooked from a lot of brands too, when it comes to content strategy, they should be listening to sales calls, right? I don't hear too many people talk about it, right? Like, it's very simple to invest in a tool like Gong or even just record your Zoom calls and things like that. But listen to what your customers are saying on the phone and what they expect from you. How did they come in the door? What led them there? Was there a specific piece of content that led them in the door? And if so, how do you replicate that across different segments? So
and I think as a sales person as well, it's great to just bring in a content person because we already speak that language. You're the like yin to your yang kind of thing. So you're busy telling the client you should buy this, and they're thinking he just wants me to buy that. And then you have the content strategist saying you should buy that. That's great. Here's also 6 other things you could buy that are different to that. Instead of buying that one thing, here are 3 things you should buy that cost the same. Just to show that like that expertise is there. I'm concerned about your well-being, not about the sale. And that's what content is.
But I think that's a great analogy. Absolutely. Because it's the same thing with sales, right? I can't go on the first call, discovery call, and I'm sending you a large presentation with a proposal right afterwards, right? It's know your business more. There's no way I'm going to know your business enough where we're signing paperwork in that first 30 minutes. So, it's the same approach, guys. So, definitely take that into account when you guys are thinking content strategy. Oh, we also have another question, Pradeep. Appreciate you, man. A lot of chatter about repurposing and recycling old content. What do you guys say?
Oh, yeah. You have to do that. Content is forever.
Yes.
You need to fix the content you have. And that's why strategy is important because, very oftentimes you'll have been doing content for a long time and then you'll only start thinking about the strategy a few years in. And it's not net new, right? It's not just like, what are we doing ahead? Because you have to go backwards. You have to fix what's wrong. You have to delete what's wrong. You have to update. And everything new you create, you have to have a timeline for as well. Because what's relevant now is not relevant tomorrow. So brands are like people. We change. Our opinions change. Our feelings change. Our promise changes. So you've got to be able to rework old content. And you need to optimize it. Because like we were saying earlier, just because it's working now doesn't mean it's working tomorrow. Content evolves. It's not a, forever thing.
Yeah, and just think of it from this perspective too, Pradeep. Like, why not if you put that investment in, right? Why wouldn't you want one piece of content to end up turning into 8 different deliverables, right? You have one piece, you break it down into a bite-sized clip, you throw it on LinkedIn. You take the large, long-form static content that you have, you throw that on your blog or your website. You take another clip, you throw it on Twitter. There's so many different things. You could do a 2-minute video about the content. So now you have something for YouTube, right?
Jared, you're frozen for me. Oh, there you go. You're back.
Yeah. So if you guys haven't heard of him, Ross Simmons talks about this extensively. He actually had a presentation on this on MozCon. Personally, for my brand, I need to do it more. Like, I'm like to create content on LinkedIn constantly, and I need to go back to my content from 6 months ago and what I was talking about that really got some traction. How can I just put that into 2 sentences, 3 sentences maybe, right? For people who I'm connected with now that may have not seen it. So all piece of content is good. It's just, you should be getting the most out of it, right? And stretching it out so you can, maximize your return.
Yeah, and you're closest to your content. You've read it a million times. You're probably sick of of it. But, new audiences, new people haven't heard it. Old audiences probably didn't see it because they weren't on Twitter that day. So it's important to relook, and reusing is not a sin. It's fine.
Yeah. Go. And I know I have a question for you, Jordan, because that's something I always wondered, right? So say we get a new client in, they're going to focus on a content plan, a content strategy, but they have this great idea. They say, hey, we want to do content in this way, but as a content strategist, this may not be the right idea for their specific audience. How do you sway them to try and test new ideas?
Well, I think the easiest way is just with numbers and with data, right? Because a lot of people don't think about measurement. They don't think about how they're going to prove content actually works.
Yeah.
Like you said, the client has this great idea. They want to do it because they've always wanted to do it, or a competitor is doing it.
Yeah.
But how do you prove that did or didn't work? How do you prove how much of it worked? So I think it always goes back to the number, goes back to the ROI, goes back to the KPIs and how you're going to measure it. So if you can say you could do this is what we could realistically measure with that.
Yeah.
And then, or you could do these 16 things. This is what we could realistically measure. This meets your goal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of clients forget about goals. It's such a silly thing, but you can sometimes start in the middle, but asking yourself, why are we doing this? Why do I want to do this? Do I want to do it because I really love the idea? Or do I want to do it because I want to increase sales, increase traffic, increase loyalty? Starting with that why really makes you rethink, the what.
Absolutely. But I'm curious too, what data would you look at? So for that particular example, right? He brings it to you, and like you said, you want to do the research and you want to, have facts and analysis to prove and back your theories. What would you look at first? Or what are some of those things that, people in the audience could take home with them and possibly look at content differently?
Yeah, I think that it could be anything, but, for example, client wants to do a video series because, they want to do a YouTube video series, over 12 weeks. It's just, they've decided they want to do it because their competitors are doing it. So then it starts with okay, what do you actually want to achieve? What do you want this investment you're making to result in? And if they say, well, obviously I want to up sales of my shoes online. Okay, that's it. How are you going to prove that with this? Are you going to be featuring your shoes? Are you going to be linking to your shoes in the videos? Are you going to be featuring a certain amount of shoes and then linking to those and then measuring how many people click through? So it all depends on the what, and then you can look at the measurement. Because then what we would say is, instead, what if we did an email series on how to clean your sneakers? People sign up to that, and then what you do is you promote 3 sneakers in each email series. It's 12 weeks. It's a quarter or less of the price of your video series, much, much less. Yeah. And we can show that we're going to send this many, we get this many open rates, we get this many click-throughs, we can A/B test our different emails, So just, there are a lot. That's a great thing about digital. You can achieve one goal in 60 different ways. It's so great, but which is best for your audience, which is best for your brand, which is best for your goal, that requires a lot of brainstorming. And I think it's worth questioning everything. And if we question it, and at the end of the day, video is definitely the best way to go, at least we've asked the questions, right?
Absolutely. And I think another thing they should be looking at it too is when you look at content, especially if we're talking about the sneaker example, right? There's going to be one thing that your customers going to want to know, right? How does it differ from the other sneakers that I get, right? So how do you differ from Nike, Adidas, Reebok, and some of those major retailers, right? And there's a way to do this without being the normal sales content. I think people, or at least content strategists, at least for brands, I don't know if there's limitations to what they do, but I don't see a ton of creativity in a lot of specific niche verticals. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the place you should be having your creativity. There's things that you could be doing to make it fun. What are some of the myths about sneaker wearing? And you could add in some of your product knowledge or some of your features in your shoe, and that people wouldn't have known. And it's in an engaging format. And then the best part about it, you actually capture that data, and then you can segment your audience, which goes back to your audience, personification, understanding who they are. So you don't have to be in a box. You don't have to do a long form piece of static content. I would actually recommend to stay away from static. Things interactive. People's attention spans are like this, right? If you don't catch my attention right now, I don't care about the shoe. You know what I mean? It doesn't look cool at first look. I don't really care. So how do you grab it? Make it a quiz, make it an assessment, a test, something that catches my eye that's visually appealing, and then you get them and you collect that data.
Yeah, because it is, like we were saying at the start, content is a conversation. It's not a blanket statement.
So true. Yeah. Yeah. And then any other question? I know we're coming up to the 5-minute mark. I have at least a couple of questions, but are there any questions from the crowd? I would love to hear from you guys.
I think this is a Jared question.
A great one. So can you discuss the pitfalls of establishing a presence and no real engagement on LinkedIn? What is one way to turn around your activity? So as far as like real engagement on LinkedIn, Rakisha, I think like it depends. People look at it differently. Like the reason why I got on LinkedIn, as you guys know, like I wanted to increase my personal brand and I wanted to kind of break down the sales barrier and not just be, oh, the sales guy that's in your DM and just more of a, hey, that's Jared. I know him. I know his story. He's cool. He's a father of 2. And how do we create a conversation where we could actually lead to some opportunities, right? So when I first started, I was thinking about, well, I need 100,000 likes on every piece of content. To be honest with you, the ones that have 5, 10, 15, 20 likes, those are my favorites. Because then I could work that list better. I could have an intimate conversation with everybody who likes my content. And my main thing is, even if it's not a sale from that person, how can you help champion me or how can I help you, right? If you have something about marketing, I have people calling me after hours. We have conversations. Next day I'll see a post like, hey, Jared, help me. And that's so cool. You know what I mean? And that makes me feel good. And I feel like all of those different activities will eventually lead to that sale. So my main thing is, how do I establish myself as a good person? And then on top of the marketing knowledge and things that I would share and content tips and things like that. So, and one way to turn it around, be authentic. That's it. Is the only way to be, Rakisha. I think me and you talk about this all the time, just be yourself. It's been times I shared a video of a dude singing D Block outside in the rain and it got like 30 likes. Did it have anything to do with anything I do? No, but it basically, I flipped it around and said, hey, it's a rainy day on a Wednesday, but this guy's outside in the rain, putting smiles on faces, right? So how bad can it be? And then people would change their perspective on it. And then it starts a conversation about something else. Hey, Jared, how's the kids? And next thing you know, we have a call on Tuesday at 4:00. You know what I mean? So, those are just some things.
Yeah, I think like you're saying, don't think of what Jared would say. Don't think of what a brand would say. Don't think of what a LinkedIn post would look like. Like, what would you actually say? What are you thinking? Be honest. It's that, people, like we were saying earlier, can sniff out that template, that marketing lingo. Like as soon as you start your post with what everyone else is starting with, they've skipped over it. They've carried on scrolling. So just like start a conversation, say something real. People will stop. People will engage.
Absolutely. The realest sayings are the ones that fly. Like the one time I put into it, I'm like, oh, this is going to fly. I've got marketing tips. I got bullet points. I got emojis. It's about to go down. And then as soon as I press send, 2 likes, 30 views. I'm like, oh.
And you spent more time on that one post than any of the others, like 15.
Exactly. And then soon when I'm just in a flow one day and I'm like, something happened on a call. I'm just letting it type. I've got 3 typos in the thing. It's got 100 likes. So don't put too much, emphasis on it. Just have fun with it. If I don't get likes and engagement, I'm laughing at it.
Also, you have to test to learn, right? When we do this with content all the time, you have to make mistakes. You have to try different things, and you'll learn it. And you'll create a template of how you need to speak to people, the content you need to write. Like that will come. But you've got to try out different things. You've got to see the results. You've got to see what people engage with and what they don't. And you'll learn from yourself and you'll learn from the data.
So true. We actually have one to have to plug in next week's episode. But next week, Rakisha, we're going to have a LinkedIn All-Star one with Sam Downs and David Stan. And then we're going to have some more LinkedIn top creators. If you have anybody that you want us to talk to, love to have you on. Let's get it going, all right? But we're going to end off with one last final question. I thought this was a really good one for us to kind of tackle before we end off. Is content strategy a luxury or unnecessarily expensive process, or is it something you can't afford not to do?
It's definitely that second one. I mean, content is expensive. No matter what you do, content costs money, it costs time, it costs effort. If you don't put strategy behind it, you're going to lose the investment. If you put strategy behind it, that investment is going to grow and grow and grow, and you'll see the returns. So you can't afford not to. Otherwise, you might as well just not do any content and, pray.
Yeah. You fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Yeah, definitely.
That's simple. You have to. It is a necessity right now because all your competitors are doing it. I think people or brands get kind of discouraged because they're like, everybody's doing content and what would make them come to mind? But at the same time, what makes you think that you can't do it better than the people are already doing it? Right? I think Mike said something last week that went crazy on Twitter. He said, if you do if you do the same things as everyone else, you're going to get the same results as everyone else.
Exactly.
And that is true.
And for brands that can't compete on price and locations and quality and all those extra things that really big brands can do, you can compete with content. You really can be totally different.
You can change your whole brand sentiment with a good piece of content.
So
it's something that you need to be focused on, but just focus on what helps your brand. What do you want your brand to look like? What do you want to feel like? You got the fun company? Are you a serious company? What is your product? If you guys are talking about cloud computing, why not make it fun, right? Why not make it in a digestible format instead of doing a 20-page white paper with a bunch of lingo that only you would know? That's not going to be helpful.
Yeah.
It was Mike built on content strategy, my man.
Yeah. Mike is our content. I'm the strategist.
Content is like playing content kings, man. So I definitely before coming here, like, you know, the way that we actually do our content strategy, I've never seen anybody do it like this. I think we are one of the strongest teams from a content and technical SEO perspective. So yeah, I know I've up-leveled my game since being here. So I appreciate the whole team and Jordan. You know, me and you work closely together. There's a lot of opportunities that, you know, I'm glad to have you a part of, and you get the people, you know, get customers, you know, brain spinning and getting them thinking about new ideas. I appreciate your time. I'm glad you're here and joined us today.
Thanks. It's been really nice to feature with the LinkedIn king.
Yeah, there you go. I'm trying to get there. Mike is actually killing me on LinkedIn right now. We're going to have to conjoin forces or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to take my talents to Twitter.
SEO liberties, you know?
Yeah, there we go. And then we do a session like that, SEO leverage. We'll talk about that soon. But thank you, everybody. If there's no other final questions, I just want to say thank you for joining episode 9 of Rankable. We really appreciate it. We could not do this without your continued support. Next week, we will have LinkedIn All-Stars. Also, check out for some content that'll be on the blog. If you haven't, too, make sure you check out Runtime, which is our movie that we did in MozCon. Mike killed it. If you're a developer, coder, looking about technical expertise, this is something that you must see. All right, it's one of the most creative things I've seen. So thank you for everybody for joining. You know, we'll see you next week. Feel free to DM us, LinkedIn, connect with us, and see you soon, guys.
Thanks so much, Jared.
All right, guys.
Bye.
Take care.